tax cap ordinance to order. Roll call.
Trustee Kreis.
Here.
Trustee Schiavone.
Here.
Trustee Gillis.
Here.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Killily.
Here.
Trustee Moskal.
Here.
Mayor Rybak.
Here. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out this evening for the second public hearing for the repealing of the self-imposed tax cap ordinance. Our first hearing was held about 2 weeks ago, and I see a lot of the same faces here this evening that were at the first meeting. I tried to explain at the first hearing that when I became mayor, it was more than evident that the village was in financial trouble. The village is $24 million in debt. This debt is in the form of bonds that were issued by the previous administrations. The practice of borrowing began in 2007 and didn't end until 2010. While Tom was mayor, he borrowed approximately $4 million in 2 years, and in the following 2 years, Terry borrowed an additional $20 million. The repayments of these bonds were supposed to be done with sales tax, additional tax, gas tax, and a surcharge on the water bill. The village refinanced the bonds just prior to the last election to try to address the immediate cash flow problem they were experiencing. The new repayment of the bonds started in 2013. Currently, the village has to pay back the issued bonds at the rate of about $1.5 million a year. If the pledged taxes and surcharges don't cover the bond payments that are due, we have to use other funds to cover the difference. It was very apparent to me that the accounting practices of the past were totally unacceptable at any level. I hired an outside CPA to get a better picture of our overall financial situation. From day one, I was told by the prior administration that I'd be lucky if I made it through the end of the year without running out of money. With the guidance of the new accountant, the board received monthly reports and financial forecasts that indeed showed that running out of money could very well be the case. I held meetings with the employees in September of 2013 to explain the financial situation of the village. The finance committee started looking for different ways that we could generate dollars that would be needed to continue to run the village. I carefully looked at the expenses in all departments, and many changes came about. The knowledge of the financial situation is not something we just started looking at 2 weeks ago. We've been trying to address it for over the past year and a half. Some of the new revenue streams were put into place from the suggestion of the Finance Committee. The board decided to have our fire department become our ambulance service. We used to pay Bud's ambulance $36,000 a year to transport our residents. The residents then paid Bud's for their services. Our fire department was always the first to respond to any ambulance call and were there to assist our residents, but then needed to just stabilize the patient and wait for Bud's. Now when a resident calls 911 for an ambulance, our very well-trained paramedics show up and have the care of our residents from the time they arrive until they're taken to the hospital for further medical aid. This is generating money for the village instead of paying someone else to transport. The village board agreed to impose a 1% home rule sales tax. This did not put us higher than our surrounding communities that we were already paying sales tax. The board continued to try to attract business to the community by changing zoning codes when necessary to assure that the businesses could come to the village. We continue to apply for grants that we have been very successful in receiving. These grants are for various projects throughout the village, but we believe they have a better benefit for the overall improvement of the village. Expenses in all departments were addressed, and many changes came about to streamline and save the village money. We no longer had a full-time village attorney, which was outsourced to a legal firm that we used to advise us on all legal matters. When I asked the full-time village administrator and an economic developer that the village had employed to account to me on what he was doing and producing for the village, he decided he no longer wanted to work for the village. We chose not to replace this position and took the task of attracting new businesses to the village ourselves. Many vacant storefronts and office spaces have been filled in the past year. With the announcement of the closing of Century Foods, I personally reached out to Burkott Grocers to see if they'd be interested in coming to the village. They are currently working on doing nearly a $5 million renovation of the old Century Food and St. Vincent thrift store. I'm very proud to announce that they will be opening the beginning of December. There is a job fair scheduled with them to be hosted at the Village Hall to interview candidates who would like to work at their new location. The new store should generate approximately 50 new jobs in the village. We have brought a new used car dealer to the village along with a motorcycle sales shop. Charter Fitness is now open for business. Smaller businesses have opened, such as Steer Hogs, La Dolce Bakery, and other nutrition stores. A new Allstate agent has entered into our ranks also in the village. And we have also numerous service-oriented businesses in the past year, but without the cost of a $100,000 plus salary to bring them in. When I got in office, both unions, police and fire, were in negotiations. I worked closely with the unions and both agreed to term contracts, with both unions agreeing to take 0 increases for the first 2 years of their contracts. Full-time positions were replaced with lesser paid personnel. Some were filled with part-time employees and some positions weren't filled at all. To address the cash flow problem in the village, we opted to push out payments to certain bills to ensure we had enough money to operate. Even with all the new revenue streams and the cuts in the expenses, we are still short of our yearly debt obligation that the village has to overcome. Currently, again, I remind you, the village is $24 million in debt, paying it back at an annual rate of approximately $1.5 million. No new debt has been incurred since I have taken office. Sitting and trying to place blame on anyone is a waste of positive energy. We can all be angry and disappointed in the decisions that were made in the past, but that does not solve our problem. The focus for this village board has to be how to overcome the 2 problems we are facing: our long-term debt problem, followed by a short-term cash flow problem. The Finance Committee met last Friday, and the financial forecast at that meeting showed that by the end of January, we would be at negative spending. Time is of the essence when we are discussing our solutions. The Finance Committee has been trying to come up with plans and ideas to get us out of our financial dilemma. The problem with the proposed solutions is that we would not feel the effect of some of their ideas in a quick enough fashion. Many of the ideas are speculative. We could raise the sales tax by another 1%, but that would mean our sales tax rate would be the highest in the state. That could deter people from shopping in the village and could also cause some businesses to relocate to other communities. The net effect of this proposal could be detrimental to attracting new businesses to come to the village. By law, the village wouldn't be able to entertain requesting the sales tax increase until April of 2015, and that would then be implemented for a July 1st, 2015 start. The adding of a liquor tax or cigarette tax would have the same effect. We need to continue to attract businesses to the village that will generate sales tax. We are currently working in a contract with Hamilton Partners to develop the 147th Street site. After nearly a year of working with the property owner of the hard corner, we were able to come to agreement to develop the entire site as one piece under the direction of Hamilton Partners, and I feel confident that we should have something committed to that site very soon. With the opening of the 294-8057 interchange in Posen, this has brought a lot of interest to the 147th and Kedzie properties. I reached out to the property owners, and they currently have a developer trying to bring a commitment to that side of town as well. In the first public hearing, there were many ideas given by residents and the board members, and I appreciate that we are looking for any way to get us out of the mess we are in. It was suggested that we do a special assessment tax on the property tax bill. I investigated the prospects of being able to do something like this and found out that a special assessment can only be imposed for something new in the future to bring about the betterment of the community as a whole. And while paying off our long-term debt would be for the betterment of the community, this is not allowable for that purpose. It was suggested that we impose a tax on service-driven businesses. The administration of such tax would be very costly, and then I also found out the other reason that no other community in Illinois has it. The Illinois Supreme Court ruled in 1982 that such a tax is unconstitutional, so this solution is not going to work either. I have heard from some residents that they feel our staff is overpaid for what they do for a living. While you look at our website and search to see what the people who work here make, you should do your homework and find out that our fire chief makes approximately 5% less than the average chief in the surrounding communities. Our deputy chiefs make approximately 13% less than the average. The average firefighter/paramedic salary in the surrounding communities is $75,300. our average salary is $73,495. Our chief of police makes 8.5 less than the average chiefs in the surrounding communities. Our police officer's salary is $67,500 on average, and our surrounding communities compensate on an average of $72,000. Our public works superintendent receives approximately 7% less than the surrounding communities. Our public work employee, on average, makes $58,709 a year, while the surrounding communities pay an average of $61,200. Whatever the board decides to do, it is absolutely necessary for the village to secure tax anticipation warrants. This is a loan borrowing the money anticipated on the property tax that the village would receive in March of next year. When presenting ourselves to the bank to secure such loans, we need to be able to show them that we have a 3-year plan with a positive way to get the village out of our financial deficit. I will need to show the banks that we have a plan based on concrete numbers instead of some predictions of things that might happen. The money that was borrowed in the past is now the money we have to repay going forward. We can sit and try to blame and accuse, but the bottom line is we are still liable for the money we owe. We can attempt to file bankruptcy and ask the state to come in and take over and become the next Robbins or Harvey. The state solution would be to raise the property taxes as well. We can leave our fate in the hands of outsiders, or we can take responsibility for the condition we have been left in. The ordinance was written in such a way that the decision falls solely on the 6 board members in front of you. As the mayor, I don't get a vote in this decision. I have to rely on the judgment of the board. We needed to conduct 2 public hearings, this be the second of them, related to the issue, and then we have to wait 45 days before a vote can be taken on the issue. I need the trustees to hear your concerns and take all your thoughts into consideration when making their decision. One of our biggest challenges I've had in the past year and a half is the employees were totally used to, but we always did it that way. Showing them that day-to-day operations could be done in a different, more efficient, more economical way was hard, but I am proud to say they have all come around. They've embraced the new ideas and are working for the common goal of making our village better. In 2010, to get home rule, a promise that this was not related to raising taxes was a valid promise from the board members. That didn't mean that the time might come that they have no other choice. None of these board members could have foreseen the economy in our village, county, state, country, and the world stay in the so-called depressed recession that we are just beginning to slowly come out of. The increase the board is currently looking for to the residents would be 33%. Yes, I understand the percentage sounds very high, but when you take into consideration, the village's current tax rate is 1.967, with the increase it would go to 2.62. The increase would only apply to the village portion of your tax bill, not your entire bill. With the assistance of Trustee Killeley, he developed a spreadsheet to predict what this would do to the average homeowner and business owner. The increase to the home properties we ran were anywhere from $80 to $350 per year. This increase would give the village the money we need to make our daily operating expenses and cover the $1.5 million in bond payments. Being fiscally responsible is still top priority for this entire board, and we will continue to look at any and all ways to save money. At this time, if any of the board members would like to make any comments before we open it up for public comment.